Welcome to the Dojo, where we turn marketing news into marketing tasks that can help you to achieve your marketing goals for this year. This week, we're going to be joined by Danielle from Exposure Ninja's account management team. Hello, Danielle.
Hello.
Would you mind taking a second to tell us a little bit about what you do at Exposure Ninja and what your relationship is to marketing?
Yeah, so I am an account manager with Exposure Ninja. I look after a few clients and accounts, which I absolutely love. I've been involved in marketing for the last 15 years. So whether that's being a marketing manager, obviously working for other companies like yourself, and I've also been self-employed. So I think that actually works really well with clients because I can really see things and understand things, especially frustrations from their point of view. So yeah.
Superb. Well, if this is your first time watching or listening to this podcast, the way it works is this. Well, each person here will give us a story, which will then turn into tasks. Those tasks will then help you later on through the day. Hopefully something you can complete today, if not by the end of this month or this quarter. And it's going to dramatically take your rankings or your traffic or your leads in the right direction. Danielle, what's your story for this week?
Mine is how Aldi reached millions to achieve social media fame.
Do love a good Aldi story here. Super. Jess, what's your story for this week?
Mine is marketing lessons from Donald Duck's 90th birthday. It's a very Jess topic, isn't it? I thought
that was going a different direction.
No, never. Donald Duck. Don't worry.
Okay. The good Donald.
The good Donald.
Wait, what?
And Tim, your story for this week?
I'm right. In AI corner, I didn't know there was a bad Donald. Anyway, I'm missing something. I'm either too old or too young. In AI corner this week, we have a couple of updates from Apple, which could be kind of interesting. One, they're taking on Google Display ads, and the other one is about how the nature of SEO might change in the future as we optimize content, not for people, but for AIs. It's not really a great headline, but that's AI corner this week.
I just immediately was thinking to myself about page titles. They're going to be like 55 characters long for the search and stuff like that. Yeah, I do love a long title too. I'm kind of intrigued by that one. But now all this mention of Donald, I think Jess, you're going to have to go first.
Yeah, so...
Not the Donald, of course.
Yeah, so it's Donald Duck's 90th birthday this year. So of course the Disney company are cashing in on this big time because of course they do. Mostly merchandise. But what really caught my attention is how this is differing regionally. And I thought there was actually some really good lessons in here. So, you know, I'm not going to bring up the sites now, but if you go on the Paris Disneyland page, they're not bothered. Florida, not bothered. California, not bothered. Shanghai, not bothered. Tokyo Disney, the website, they've got Donald Duck straight on the website. They have a whole parade dedicated to him with a custom song just about him. The park has been taken over by Donald's Quacky Duck City. And they're really like pushing it, right? They're really pushing the Donald Duck thing. And I was like, that's really, really interesting to me because they're not doing it at any of the other parks. And really, I realized what this is about is really understanding this one particular demographic and knowing that this is what makes them tick. They freaking love this character, so we're really, really going to push this in those demographics. It's the same as in Disneyland Paris. They really like Chip and Dale, so you'll see a lot more merch with Chip and Dale on. And I'm sure the same is for the other parks, but I haven't been, so I don't know. And of course, I'm not saying that you listening right now own multiple theme parks across multiple countries. It's not what I'm saying at all. And here, in this situation, we have this really, really, really clear audience segment, right, where they have identified in this location, this thing is more popular. But this works on so many smaller levels too. Like, it doesn't have to be that vast. It could just be, you know, you have two audience segments and you realize that humor really resonates with one audience and stats and facts and before and afters or something like that really, really resonates with your other audience. So even if you're not advertising a duck's birthday and you don't have theme parks across the world, you really still should consider like what's important to your audience, especially if you've got multiple segments. And I say especially if it's very, very likely that you do have multiple segments, even if you're like, oh, I'm only advertising to this one group of people. Okay, but there's probably segments within that will find, will be interested. If, let's say, you are tailoring your stuff to parents with older kids are going to be experiencing different things to parents with brand new kids. So you might have some different humor you can tap into there, and the kind of things that they want. Same goes if you're like B2B or SaaS. So yeah, as much as I'm just finding Donald Duck's birthday a very funny thing that keeps coming up on my Instagram, I was like, I really feel like there's a marketing story here, and there was, hence why I brought it up.
I love that. It reminds me of how you get like sports people who just they get like oversized famous in certain countries around the world. They just latch onto them. Same with celebrities, right? Not every celebrity translates from the UK to the US, for example, but then you get someone like James Corden who just for some reason seems to really resonate with the US audience. I don't get it, but and it makes me, I was just talking to an agency who is thinking of selling, and they said 80%, they're a UK based agency, but 80% of their business comes from the US. And for whatever reason, their proposition just really resonates with the US audience, and they drive so much business in the US without even being in the US. So obviously the next logical step for them would be, right, we probably want to go to the US, right? Not on their roadmap, but whatever, each their own. But I think that your story, Jess, reminds me of that idea that we probably just want to test our product or service with a fairly wide range. And then if you're in the early days of your business, see where it resonates and then sort of jump into that, let the data do the talking and go through your customer list and figure out what are the commonalities between our best customers and where are we big, even if we don't know that we're big.
Yeah, like we did a video a couple of months ago about having multiple audiences, and one of the brands that we brought up in there was a company that sells like cooling vests, and on first glance at their website, you could see there was a load of like people just working in manual jobs, and then there was also like cosplayers, costume performers, and then like fursuiters. And on first glance at their website, you're like, oh, okay, so they were selling this equipment for like manual workers, and then they saw the fursuit people and the cosplayers were buying from them and thought, oh, we might as well sell to them too, and put their pictures on a website. And then it turns out it was the reverse, and they'd actually had this one really distinctive niche of fursuiters and cosplayers, and then realized that their products were so good that companies were wanting to buy them for their workers. And I just think that's a really cool like case study where they had this one clear audience. When they looked into things, oh, actually we're really popular with this industry too, how can we tailor our advertising to them as well? And yeah, I really like that.
Danielle, do you have any first-hand experience of working with maybe a client or a business, or perhaps just a brand you've admired on social media that have very clearly had this kind of similar segmentation that maybe you've fallen into or have been a part of?
Yeah, so something that somebody that I've worked with, they do outdoor activities, and thought that their main or their only audience, really, their biggest market was going to be stag and hen parties. So yeah, and I think clients do this as well, where you sort of pigeonhole yourself sometimes into that one thing, thinking it's going to be stag market or hen or whatever it may be. But then actually over time they realize, oh, actually obviously there's this other market that we could tap into. So with this particular company, it was a non-EN client, but it quickly realized that there was also a school market there. And obviously, once you're aware of that, you need to change your language and, make it very different. So when you're speaking to stags, you make it very laddie and, like you're talking to your mates. And then if you're talking to a school teacher and you're talking about children and safeguarding and all of those issues, it's two complete extremes. So yeah, that's been my experience with it.
I think there's also like a cautionary tale of you've also got to be really 100% positive that the segment is right for you, or that segment wants to hear from you. I can think of, I was once consulting with a business and they were like, we just want to create like something for younger people, for young adults. Like we just want to push our services into that area. And I was trying to get to the reason why. We're like, our client base is older and, we're trying to make sure there's still people to use it. And I thought that, it makes a lot of sense. But when it comes to the question of like, what are you offering? They're like, oh, we don't know. We just know we need to go after younger people, but we don't have anything for them. Okay, cool. So I just kept going backwards and forwards of like, I can help you to reach younger people, but you got to actually make sure that what you have is relevant to them. Otherwise you're just, hi, we exist, and that means nothing. It's not going to be anything they're going to be able to do anything with it. Reminds me of Loop earrings, Jess, how they've segmented quite a lot for different audiences too.
Yeah, the earplugs, yeah, they're really cool because they have, like, you know, even on their website they refer to, you know, parents, but they also refer to people who want to go to festivals, that they refer to neurodiverse people, and kind of they've also sort of put it under this umbrella of like everyday life, however you want to play, this is kind of for you. So I think they've done quite a good job of tying it all together, but then also creating content and making it clear that these different segments are covered. But then there's segments there that are clearly left out, like you know, they're not including construction workers or people that might be in high volume areas. They're like, we're going for the everyday person rather than the professional, and they've stuck to that as well, which I think is also a good move.
Yeah, I think after segmentation, there's also like a part that we can. Did I say earrings before? I meant Loop earplugs. Yeah. Sorry about that. Sorry, Loop. I do love you. How they've decided, okay, segmentation, ad copy sounds like this, reads like this, visuals look like this, but they're also looking at marketing mix and going, we can reach people through PPC and paid media, but also there's like partnerships. So they work to like Tomorrowland, massive like festival in Belgium, I want to say. Huge EDM, like electric dance music festival. And they said, okay, well, we can get to that audience a lot easier if we actually go with the people who talk to them all the time and are trying to, you know, we can kind of lean into their marketing budget, if you want to put it that way. I think that also applies to like many of the people who are watching and listening to this podcast. There's probably some kind of partner in the segment that you're trying to capture or, you know, to infiltrate, I suppose, trying to get your way into there. You can lean into that market too. Like we've previously did a little bit of work with a company that does like that whole company house, like setting up. I had like a small partnership there because companies will eventually need marketing. So hi, we do marketing, we do it exceptionally well. And if you want to find out more about how we do exceptionally good marketing, you should go to exposureninja.com/review, request a free website and marketing review. And if you're eligible, we'll be able to point out exactly what we'll do to improve your marketing and get you better results in a 15 to 25 minute video. So head on over to exposureninja.com/review. Yeah, we worked with that partner and it's been good for us, good for them, made it a lot easier to reach some of those businesses in their earlier stages too. Any final thoughts before we move on to the next story?
I think the key is listening. You've got to be tuned enough to your audience and actually looking for these commonalities. Donald Duck being big in Tokyo but not being big in California would be fairly obvious to spot, I'm guessing. Like the team on the ground at Disney would look at all the Donald Ducks flying out of the merch store or the gift center or whatever and be like, yeah, okay, cool, Donald seems to be resonating for whatever reason. Or that may have been a conscious play. But I think a lot of the things that we're talking about are almost like discovering niche audiences. And in order to do that, you actually have to be tuned enough to your audience. And I think particularly as a company gets larger, the marketers get further and further away from those customers and from the order flow. So this needs to be a conscious effort for people to go back in and do exploratory discovery. It's why when we're doing our branding work, we call our clients customers and clients to find out. And we're often presenting information to the client in those briefing calls that is new to them because they haven't been talking to their customers in that way. They're just taking orders through the website or, you know, whatever, or their sales team is the one who's doing the conversation. So I think this takes work and it takes a conscious effort because these sorts of niche audiences aren't always apparent. If you're just waiting for them to appear in front of you, you actually have to go and find them.
Yeah, I love that. Just reminded me of Starbucks have just recently made their ex-CMO their new CEO, if I recall correctly. And part of the reason they've been selected is because they really understand the split in the markets between, like, we want to run Europe as like its own marketing thing. Like, we're not going to have like a top-down marketing strategy and graphics, everything. Like, you will make those decisions at a local basis and run independently. Like, we want to actually just cater to what your local audience wants to. I don't know if that's actually the products too, but certainly from a marketing perspective, they're all acting independently. I think that it'd be really interesting to see how that bleeds down smaller and smaller businesses, and whether they will also take that route. Super. Which story should we go with next? Danielle, I'd love to hear more about your Aldi story. Tell us more, please.
Well, I looked into this because I, like many other people, have come across Aldi's marketing on Facebook. And it was so interesting because, in the last 15 years, while I've been involved in marketing, and further back, it's always been people trying to look, it's always been, or it was previously, you need a business telephone number to look bigger than you are, and people were always trying to look bigger and be more professional, and all of these things that people have done over the last 10-20 years, and it seems to all just be really changing, and it's really, really interesting to see the way that it's going. And I think why I chose this story is that there's a lesson for our clients and anybody watching, that sometimes taking that risk and being a little bit different can pay dividends, which it has with Aldi. I saw a post on their Facebook a couple of weeks ago where they sort of teasing Marks and Spencer's about, it was a Marks and Spencer advert advertising a patio set, and it was a bottle of wine on this table, and the bottle of wine is from Aldi's. Who in Marks and Spencer's did that, I do not know. But there was this Aldi bottle of wine. So Aldi put the post onto Facebook saying something like, Marks and Spencer's drink Aldi wine, pass it on, which is something really funny. It's quite it's like child behavior, like schoolgirl or boy behavior. But it's funny, and it's obviously working because the reach is huge. The engagement on the profile is incredible. Like, you would never usually see that on a supermarket's social media. And the results speaks for themselves. So their impressions grew from 2 million in 2019 to more than 700 million by 2022. So in that short period, the growth has been absolutely huge. And now, because of that, according to YouGov, Aldi now ranks as the UK's most famous and most popular supermarket. So that's just incredible.
Unbelievable. Tim, Jess, you experience much of Aldi's marketing in your day-to-day, in your week?
I have, yes. And what I want to say about it as well is it definitely feels like the other supermarkets are like trying to play catch up a little bit. And it has that, that meme of hello, fellow kids kind of vibe. Whereas it feels like Aldi's totally nailed it, and they're really comfortable in this space and really great with this tone of voice. And they know it's very rare that Aldi has a scandal with their social media posts. We see other brands that try and take this more edgy tone, and they quite frequently have scandals. Aldi just doesn't. They know exactly how far to push it. And I think, yeah, it's really interesting also that you said about that they had an Aldi bottle of wine in the M&S ad, because Aldi and M&S have like a big history, which I don't know how much of that is orchestrated between the two of them. In the M&S says, well, if people see us arguing with Aldi, the people who already didn't really like Aldi and preferred M&S are going to become way more loyal. And, the people who choose Aldi aren't M&S customers anyway. Maybe that's kind of I don't know if they have, because they poke fun at M&S so often. I'm surprised that they do still get away with it, but I don't know if it's because they are clever about it and they do it really well. Yeah.
Wasn't there like a big legal thing a couple of years ago between the two?
Well, I don't know if it actually came to anything. It was about the caterpillar cake, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I did read about that. And then Aldi launched a campaign, Free Cuthbert, because of this cake. It was the caterpillar cake, wasn't it, which everybody knows is Spencer's cake. I don't know, I don't know what actually happened. But yeah, apparently there has been a feud since then.
I find it really interesting, the idea of them taking legal action against each other, because I remember it like coming up in the news and probably ended up on maybe regional news programs or national. But like, even though that's a bit of an odd bit of press to earn, it's press. Like, people are talking about you. Again, try not to stray over the line too far into like too much controversy that people will hate you. But like, if you know how to play the game well, the benefits are there to be found, because like 700 million impressions is phenomenal. And that's before like all of the additional stuff that they do in social media. Like, is it Lidl? I know it's not exactly the same brand, but very similar. They used to be owned by the same two brothers, I think, back in the day. That's, yeah. No, sorry. I'm thinking of Aldi North and Aldi South in Germany. It doesn't matter. I know too much information about useless things. They've done like partnerships and things like that. So, or you can go and buy your like Lidl jumpers and Lidl trainers, and they're like, okay, we're doing the social media thing really cool. How can we make more buzz there? We'll do this other partnership with this influencer or this company, or we'll do these products. Like, they're just knowing how many different things to play at the same time, or social media is working really well. How can we make that like more feet into the actual stores, make people who wouldn't normally make the trip over to Lidl like the extra like 50 meters, because there's one every 120 meters, at least near me. Like, how do we get actually like footfall? Like, the social media is good, but how do we get people in the store? This is like another thing to do. Does anybody own any like little Aldi merch in their wardrobe they're happy to publicly admit?
No, but my sister is always like, oh my gosh, they've launched the new trainers. Can we go have a look? So I wonder if that's a bid to connect with that hype beast younger generation who are going to be the next range of shoppers.
Actually, I just shared with you the other day, Jess. They've opened up a Uniqlo clothing store here in Edinburgh, and they did a partnership with Iron Brew. So there's like a whole rail of stuff, and like during their opening night, they had people doing like drawings and blah blah blah. They invited a whole bunch of like hundreds of influencers to the event and local important people the day before it opened, and there was so much like TikToks and YouTube shorts from people I don't know, like just popping up for me of like, here's the thing that we did at Uniqlo, and Iron Brew is there, and there's like a t-shirt with an Iron Brew logo instead of Lacoste like crocodile, it's an Iron Brew bottle, and it's like all this kind of stuff, because they know, one, people are going to want to share that, two, it's going to encourage a lot of people to like come in the store like weekend, and three, coming back to what I was saying earlier, leaning into other people's marketing and like their brand loyalty, like pulling people in because they know that they love Iron Brew. They don't know who Uniqlo is, but with a bit of work together there, everybody benefits. So
I'm really curious as to the sort of the operation behind something like Aldi or Lidl's. Which one are we talking about? Are we talking about
Aldi? We were talking about Aldi.
Sorry, my bad.
the social media visibility, right? Because I don't know how exactly it happened, but to spot that bottle of wine in the Marks and Spencer product shop, someone either has to be like crawling the website looking for banter to levy at Marks and Spencer, or what's possibly more likely is that someone from Aldi who maybe knows their wine and just spotted it in the product, but that still has to make its way through the organization over to the social media team. Then something has to get signed off or not to say, we can go and poke the bear again. Let's go and have fun with this. Like it's not. It looks like a simple thing, but it's probably actually not a simple thing to have an organization that's structured in a way that the social media content team has such freedom and has so many sources of information, because for every Marks and Spencer wine post, there must have been a huge amount of work looking at other opportunities for things like that didn't come off. So for me, it just emphasizes the scale of this and the fact that you don't get this type of thing by accident. It's also very high risk. I know we've talked loads about like Ryanair and Duolingo and how much they're smashing it on social by being so carefree, but it's not easy to get an organization like that to be carefree, and it's incredibly risky and very brave. So I'm here for it. It makes sense, right? Social media is for personalities. That's the sort of thing that goes viral. It's very difficult to see a B2B company go viral on social because it's very unlike B2B companies to ever have any sort of personality, which makes the ones that do choose to do it that much more visible. And I think this is a lesson for all of us to like let our social teams, if we have a social team who's good, let them have a bit of freedom. What's the worst case scenario? Is probably the legal team probably shuts everything down because they're scared. But actually, the worst possible thing that you're going to happen is you're going to get some press from it, right? put some guardrails on, but let them have a bit of freedom.
Yeah, I was interested when I've been looking at their posts. I've been just thinking to myself, wow, I wondered if every single one of these posts have been signed off, or well, yeah, they just sort of give them free reign. And I guess they probably told, don't mention anything political, don't mention anything, X, Y, Z. Other than that, do what you want. Yeah, and to have for the CEOs and the top leadership team to have faith in whoever it was. I wondered if it was the marketing person who sort of came along and said, I really think this would be a good idea. Let's push this way. And they, I guess, were probably hesitant and agreed to it. And it's obviously paid off. But kudos to that person that had the guts to stand up and say, let's do something different. Because if nobody does anything different, everything always remains the same. And it's paid off, obviously, massively. And when I first saw one of their posts, I did think, they're doing all this and it's funny and they've got all these followers, but what are they really gaining from it? But then a day or two later, we all know how social media, how the algorithms work. Because I obviously then liked their page. I think I actually commented on this particular post. And then a day or two later, something popped up that I tend to buy, and it was cheaper than where I buy it from. And I was like, oh, wow. And I actually sent a screenshot to my husband saying, look how cheap this is. And it was like, wow, that happened within 48 hours. And there's now I haven't been to an Aldi store for, I don't know, 3-4 years maybe. But just by me seeing that one post and then seeing the next post about one of their products being cheap, and bizarrely it was something that I actually buy, that was enough to lure me back into the store.
Gotta love the power of the algorithm.
They also they really build that affinity. Like, Aldi's my first choice. Right now, it's just not due to proximity, but it would be my first choice. And I think also, just on the topic of Aldi, I think they've done a really good job over the years for really building that affinity, because I know for a while, that of course there's memes about how they scan your shopping so quick and stuff. But another thing I know about Aldi, and that they seem to make very clear, and I don't know if this was a campaign or if it is just the kind of thing that people talk about, was that they pay their staff really well, allegedly. I don't know if that's still the case, but that was something that was around in circulation a lot. My mum would go work at Aldi, it's great, they pay really well there. And then when my sister wanted to get a job for the first time, going back quite a few years, it was like, oh, well, don't you have a look at Aldi, because they pay really well. And I don't know if it's they've been building these warm and fuzzies in a bunch of different ways, and then they've sort of seen, oh, well, this is what makes people happy on social media. Let's do this while also promoting ourselves, and almost coming across as like your little supermarket friend, which doesn't work for everyone. Just going to put that out there. It doesn't work for everyone. But Aldi, it seems like it's been their sort of guiding light, is being that really personable, friendly, for the people supermarket. And I think that's really paying off for them. Obviously, that's taken a few years to build. But I think if maybe like Waitrose just started posting memes, I think a lot of their audience would be like, what is this? Because that's not necessarily been their thing from the start. Whereas, because Aldi's done it from the start, I think it works. That doesn't mean you can't pivot, but it's going back to that conversation we were having about making sure that you're really tuned into your audience and what they want and what works for them. Because what works for Aldi might not work for you, but it might just mean that you need to find another way to be personable towards your audience or connect with them in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. It must be fascinating to think like they don't have a segmentation of, well, for a supermarket, you typically think it's like, I want to target everyone because everybody needs to shop. And it is very much the case, but they will have like that segmentation there. And how do you do marketing for everybody? Like, that's really hard. Like, you can't, they could in theory have like just one social media account for younger people, one social media account for elderly people, because all those different kinds of groups shop at Aldi. So how do you pick like a line of personality or comedy that resonates with all of them? That's even more impressive. Like, the fact that somebody who's 16 and 61 could both find the same thing funny and then both relate to it is not easy. So yeah, I think nothing but congrats all around from everyone in here.
And I think this is also about the channels and making sure that your content is channel specific. So their content on Twitter will be quite different to their content on Facebook. I would imagine would be quite different to their content on TikTok. Like the channels sort of segment your audience a bit for you, don't they? So you have to be native. Like Duolingo is way different on Facebook. I think we've looked at them before in a video. Way different on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, because they're optimizing their output for the audiences that are sort of native to that platform. Of course, there's crossover, but the default audiences are slightly different.
Right, I think we could talk Aldi up quite a lot more, but I think that's enough for them for now. They're doing all right on their own. We don't need any more praise from us. So Tim, your story for this week, please.
Yeah, I'm thinking of renaming myself to AI Corner. I don't know, I haven't put through the cost-benefit analysis sheet, but this week's AI Corner is all about a few hints about what Apple has planned. So Apple hasn't really done much with generative AI. It hasn't really announced much. But it looks like that might be changing, and there's a few updates that are expected to come out this summer as part of its iOS 18. So this is the operating system that iPhones run on, so it will immediately be available to millions or billions of people. There's a couple that really caught my eye from a marketing perspective. The first is something called Web Eraser, which is kind of a curious concept. So the Web Eraser tool is apparently going to be, this is according to Apple Insider, a tool that you can use to erase any content that you want from a website. So this is according to Apple Insider. This is the quote: users will have the option to erase banner ads, images, text, or even entire page sections, all with relative ease. So you go on a web page, it's covered in ads and videos, and you can use this web eraser to erase the bits that you don't like. When you then go back to that web page later on, those bits are gone. So obviously, if I'm a publisher and I'm publishing, I have this business that is reliant on display ads, I'm thinking, well, that kind of sucks, right? People are going to be coming onto my site and just erasing the ads, so literally erasing my revenue. But then I thought, well, actually, how many people are really going to use this, right? When you go onto a website, if the ads are offensive, you just either leave the site if they're bad enough, or you probably just scroll past them. That's a lot less effort than going into a menu bar and clicking Web Eraser and then erasing the little ad and then scrolling up and erasing the next bit. This kind of reminds me of, remember the Google, the notes thing? So we were all supposed to start annotating the search results and typing our notes next to the website. And we saw this and thought, that who is actually going to do that? When you're clicking around Google, the last thing you want to do is start making notes for other people who are going to land in the search results. I'm like, oh, here's a recipe I made using this, here's a picture of my brownies that I made from this really helpful recipe. I'd rate it as a 3 out of 5 for families with 4 kids. Like, no one's going to do that. But I think it's one of those features that you sort of look at and think, are they not just trying to collect this data in order to train some sort of AI, right? Because of all the millions of people out there using this, of all the, the billions of search queries a day, you might only need half of a millionth of a percent of people to actually put the time in and, oh, here's my cookies, and show the picture of it in order for that to produce a useful amount of training data for some sort of AI. And it got me thinking about the potential implications of this for Apple, if they are in fact allowing their users to erase data so that Apple could learn about the parts of a page that people most hate and could then offer to show pages without the most hated parts, or the bits that looked like most hated parts, or whatever. So that's kind of interesting. Who knows what's going to happen with Web Eraser? The second update is, again, it kind of got me thinking, not because of the thing that it is, but because of the potential implications. So rumor has it that Safari is going to be offering to summarize pages for you. So Google already does this, right? You can click the little get an AI powered snippet of this search. So you're browsing the Google Discover website, you see an article that's interesting. The top Surrey towns for families of 4 people where the dad is basically an 8-year-old in disguise, right? You click on it and you're like, I want to know this Surrey town. Well, there's a little get AI powered overview, and you tap that and it goes, oh, the town is whatever, Reigate. All right, job done. So I don't need to read the article. I don't need to scroll through all this rubbish because it's just giving me the thing. So apparently Apple is going to be doing this, and it's going to be using the device itself to crawl through the information on the page and summarize it for you. And it's going to understand all the entities involved, and it's going to do a really good job of this. I thought, all right, that's kind of interesting. But this is really pointing to a future where all of the major platform companies, so Microsoft, Google, Apple, Amazon, have some sort of assistant slash co-pilot that lives on your device that is trying to become your interface with the world. So, and this is the big play, right? Apple wants Siri to be better. Amazon wants Alexa to be better. Google wants its assistant to be better, so that we don't have to necessarily go to the website. We can go to the assistant, because then they are the gatekeeper to all our purchases, so that then they can monetize this relationship. If they are assistant, every purchase goes through them. So it got me thinking about the job of content writing in the future, because if all of these companies succeed in their goal to become our AI assistants, it's very possible that the content on our website is not actually written for humans. The content on our website then becomes written for the AI assistants, because we need these AI assistants to learn about our business, learn about our products and services, and then take that, summarize it, translate it to the humans, hoping that the AI assistants position us favorably and the AI overlords choose to give us the purchase and we make the money. But that's a really kind of weird future, because if we're optimizing for the AI assistants, well, the AI assistants are still performing a web search and then they're summarizing the information in that web search. And Google says we only want to rank content that's written for humans. So are we writing for AI or are we writing for humans? In reality, we're probably going to be writing for both. If we think about SGE, SGE doesn't bestow greatness on the articles that are written for humans. SGE bestows greatness and visibility on the articles that are written for SGE, because it likes snippets, it likes short things, it doesn't like loads of detail. Well, humans like detail. So basically, the summary of all of this is no one knows where this stuff is going, but it's very likely that we're going to be writing for two audiences in the future, the AI overlords and the humans that the AI overlords are translating for. And I don't know what us marketers do. We have to optimize for the world that we live in today, of course, but we do need to keep half an eye on this, because it is going to quite profoundly change, I think, the nature of content marketing and the sort of information that we want to publish on our websites. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I can tell you feel very, very passionate about that, Tim, but that's really cool. And I think it's, especially that second half, it's one of those things that you just can't predict, but you can sort of, at the same time you can sort of say this is where the direction of travel seems to be. But the part that I sort of felt like I had an opinion on was this banner ad erasing, for example. Have you ever been on a local news site? Because let me tell you, if you love an advert and you love a banner ad and you love a pop-up ad, go on a local news site and you won't be able to read a thing, but you'll be able to be advertised a load of other things. And Apple seems to find problems that people have that really do annoy them and find ways to fix those problems. And I wonder if this is one of those where they're like, people want to access local news sites and we see people accessing local news sites on our devices all the time. They get frustrated and they leave. Maybe we can help with that and then kind of improve the internet experience for those people. That's, as soon as you said this, that's what I envisioned. I didn't envision when I land on a website and there's like a little ad at the top and one down the side. I just think that's more trouble than it's worth. But when you're on one of these websites where you can't access the content and it is unreadable because of the amount of ads, I think that's where people are going to start to be like, right, I'm sick of this. And also, you say that people won't click that button and do it, but a person scorned will. If they're sick of seeing the same ad over and over, if they're sick of this, they will go, I have had enough, and they will cross it out. It's the same, I was thinking about how I had an email about my theatre experience at the weekend when I went to see a show. Can you fill in our survey? And I wouldn't normally, but because my seat was I felt like it was a really poor seat for the money that I paid, I then filled out the whole survey, say this was naff and this was naff, and I loved the performers, but I couldn't see them, could I? And, that kind of thing. Whereas I don't think I would have given feedback So I think actually people will use this because they like to make a point that they've been annoyed by the thing that you've done.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, so you're right. Some of these local news ads, you sort of need a bigger device just so that you can get enough viewport to read a single word, because there's like ads at the bottom, ads at the top. They scroll as you move down the page. You're like, oh, I think there's
it's a
some
nightmare
in there somewhere.
Yeah, it really is a nightmare. And I know Apple have always felt like a very people first sort of device creator. Like I'm an Apple user myself, so maybe I'm biased, but I also understand people like Android because they like the customizability and they like some of the tech features. But I definitely feel like Apple is very people first, which I also think is why they're holding fire on AI stuff, because I think they want to make sure that it really is enriching the lives of their users before they release it. And they want to be the people who make people go, oh, that's why you would use that. That's why you would use an AI chatbot. That's why you would do this. So I think that's where they're gonna focus. I also had a think as well. Dale mentioned earlier about AI tools remembering stuff. And I definitely think that this kind of ties in with this AI assistant thing, where if they remember stuff about you, then they will come back and say, oh, have you reordered this thing? Or have you, done this? Or you keep asking me to turn your volume up really high. Do you need a hearing test? Like, I don't know, things like that, right? That they might be able to tell you. Or you haven't done these things that you normally do. Are you sick? Do you need to see a doctor? There's all these things that is very, very interesting, but that's a complete tangent. So I'm going to stop talking now.
No. I could really go in on this subject. I think there's a lot to really dig into it, because that is the future. And I do think that, coming back to what Tim said, you should write for the now, create for the now, but you need to have long-term plans as well, especially in business, especially in marketing. You should think, okay, what is it that I'm doing this week, today, that's going to improve my marketing and get us towards our goals? But also thinking making sure you're protecting yourself against the changes in the future. So, for example, it started this week, there's a spam update that's happening in Google's algorithm where they're specifically going after websites that have coupon sections and discount codes and all those big websites. All the news websites have been commandeered for this. They're basically removing all of them, 100% drop in traffic for these coupon sites, stuff like that. They've had middle term win of those affiliate companies, I can't remember their names, but they're going to pay us a heck of a lot of money per year to display coupon sites, and they're going to run that part of the website, blah, blah, blah. It's fine. But now all that traffic is just gone. The revenue is gone. If you need to protect yourself long term, some of those news sites probably should have leaned more into a freemium model, make sure there's freely accessible local news, but national news or more interesting journalistic stuff, editorials are behind a paywall, like the New York Times and the various others. If you take a middle term or short term approach too much, you're gonna do yourself a mischief later on when Apple starts allowing people to remove ads, or entire sections of your website just disappear from the rankings overnight.
Scary times.
Yeah, scary times. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm excited at the same time. I do love this idea of the assistant remembering everything about you and being better at deciding. You haven't ordered toilet roll for 3 weeks and now you're about to run out. You didn't spot it, but when you go to the box to take out more, it'll be empty. And that's cool. I think that's exciting. Yeah. Cool. Any final thoughts before we choose a story and turn it into tasks? No. Okay. I can't decide because they're all great. The Donald Duck story I love because about the segmentation is really important. The Aldi story is really important because of the use of social media, but also understanding your audience too. The AI story, just because you can't really take your eye off the AI stuff. I'm gonna pick. Can I combine the Aldi and the Donald Duck story? Because there's a segmentation and how you market to that segment, or there's various segments that I think is important. Even though I just said you should plan long term and do the AI stuff too. But anyway, forget that. Let's think right now. So I'm gonna pick those two stories. Jess, I'm gonna come to you first. Which marketing tasks do you think that marketing managers can do today, or at least this week, that will help them reach their goals based on these two stories?
I would say have a look in your analytics and see if there's any consistent anomalies that you think like in your demographics data, and also chat to your customers, like physically ring them and say, why did you buy from me? And, you know, maybe don't phrase it like that. Why did you buy from us? What was it that, what's sort of, what are you using our thing for? Because you might find it's completely different. Great example of this is the platform Discord that was used mostly for gamers to chat to each other. Now companies are using it to just create community spaces in general. So that's kind of a place where it was like Discord probably went, hang on a minute, this isn't just gamers and friends chatting to each other. Companies are using this too that aren't just gaming companies. They're just places that want to have a community. So I think that that's a really good case study in terms of that.
Super. Tim, which marketing lessons do you think the business owners can take from these two combined stories?
Well, I think the business owners should probably do a similar exercise, really. I met with a CFO of a big marketing group, and he sort of challenged me and said, you should probably be taking your top clients out for lunch just to talk to them, find out what else they're buying, just get to know them a bit, because you find business opportunities in there and you also build up this sort of customer persona. And I think a similar sort of activity is probably useful for all business owners, to just spend a bit of time getting to know your customers. I think it's all so easy, isn't it, with analytics data and with digital first businesses in particular, to just view customers as, you know, records in a CRM, when actually there's an immense amount of insight that comes between the fields of the CRM that you don't necessarily get from regular data capture and analytics. You actually have to talk to them and find out, oh, do you know what, like 3/5 of my customers are tennis fans or whatever, and oh right, well that's kind of interesting, right? And so I think there's a lot of just exploration there that business owners could do to get to know their customers a bit more, and find out that your Donald Duck is absolutely massive in Tokyo, but no one cares in California.
Lesson learned every day. Super. Well, Danielle, I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions if you are up to it.
I'll try.
Excellent. Okay.
Imagine if somebody said, like, no, I don't want to answer them.
Yeah,
and the
that's
podcast
fine.
done.
Yeah, bye. Okay, amazing. Danielle, if you had just 1 hour to improve your marketing, what would you work on?
Ooh. From my personal, obviously this is going to differ for everybody, every type of client, every type of industry. For me personally, it would probably be SEO knowledge, because as a business owner, or if I'm thinking of my clients who are business owners, 2 reasons. Some of my clients obviously like to do work themselves, or they'll outsource it. So they either need to know what they're doing, or they need to know enough so that they know what somebody else is doing. So, I mean, you know, with our clients, most of our clients, or mine personally anyway, I find that they have used other agencies and they haven't really known what they're doing, or they don't really understand what they're doing. So they sort of trust them completely, but then have absolutely no idea what they're doing. So for me, I think from a business owner, whether you're doing the work yourselves or passing that on to somebody else, know what it is that people are doing.
Yeah, that's a great one. What would you do with an infinite marketing budget?
Oh, I think, well, everything, I guess. You would do everything. So, you know, things that pop into your mind, you're thinking, well, yeah, if you had, endless marketing budget, then yeah, it'd be everything. Because I think there's so many different stages of the funnel where our clients, for example, will mainly focus on maybe bottom of the funnel. But if you had lots of money, you could focus on top of the funnel, where some of our clients can't do that because they haven't got that budget. One of my clients has been advertising on TV, for example, and it's costing him £30,000 a month, where other clients wouldn't have that. So yeah, I would do everything. TV, just everything that you could think of. Social media, SEO, PPC, everything. My main focus would be SEO though, because I think, and I always say to my clients, you know, once you've sort of nailed that, you do need to maintain it. Of course, you can't just forget about it. But once you've got that, I feel like it's just free leads on repeat. So SEO would be a big chunk of mine.
Super. Which marketing skill would you tell the 18-year-old you to learn, and why?
Oh, this is a tough one because I know how important SEO is, and I've just said that. But also PPC, I think, because you can get instant results, and not everybody has got the budget for SEO. So if you know about PPC, whether you're running your own business, I could set up a business today because of PPC. You can do a one-page website. My husband's actually done this recently. He was thinking of doing something else. He set up a one-page website, got a freelancer to do it, set up PPC. Within 24 hours, he'd had 4 leads, and it's incredible. PPC, I think, is if you know what you're doing and to make sure you know to do it right. Because I've had conversations with people where they haven't put the daily spend in, they spent £300 in a day that they didn't have, or another one is obviously negative keywords, where people are thinking, why am I coming up for this keyword, where they don't realise the phrase match and exact match. So yeah, learning that and learning how to do it properly.
Love it. What are you most excited about in marketing right now?
I think probably, even though I don't love the subject, and I know Tim does, and he talks about it all the time, and that I know we've got the channel internally where there's a lot of information in there, and I tend not to look at it too much because I think there's so much information. But I think that's probably what I am most excited about, because I think it's going to be a huge change. It's what our clients are most curious about. They keep asking, what are we doing about SG? And I always say, don't worry, Tim's got it in hand. Tim's researching it, don't worry. But yeah, I think that's going to be one of the biggest changes, as Tim has said in his videos. It's going to be one of the biggest changes we've seen in a long, long time. So that'll be, interesting. Very interesting to see what happens.
Excellent. Who should we invite to be our next podcast guest?
Well, I have 2 clients that would love to be podcast guests. So I think we might have emailed one, but either Sam or Joe, either of those would love to come on.
Perfect. Leave it to us. We'll get them on. Don't worry. If you're listening or watching, we're going to get you on. Don't worry. Amazing. Well, thank you very much for joining us for this week, Danny. I really appreciate it. The story was really fun and a lot to learn from it as well, which is great. And thank you all for watching and listening to this week's episode of The Dojo. You can catch all of our past episodes over at exposureninja.com/podcast. And don't forget to go and get your website review by going to exposureninja.com/review and just leave us your business details. And if you're eligible, we'll be able to send you a review outlining all of the wonderful possible things we can do with a wonderfully sick high ROI. Catch you all later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.